So just an update on that nurse. Since that was posted, she was fired from her job. But as someone who's also a nurse and I work with newborn babies, there's nothing more sad and depressing to see at work when like these new parents who should be excited to take care of the new baby are like genuinely really concerned about how they're gonna feed their baby. Like, it is so just depressing. Like, I never knew until I became a nurse how expensive diapers are. Like, one package of diapers is $50, and not every parent can breastfeed, so they're relying on formula, just as expensive. And when I'm at work and we give away diapers and formula to these patients, it feels like I'm handing over gold because that's how expensive these things are. And whenever we discharge these patients, we try to make sure that they have all the resources that they need. But I just can't imagine being a nurse and making that video of mocking these people. Like, they just need help.
Another day, another MAGA meltdown, and this is wild, my people. A white MAGA nurse from Alabama, Tina Coleman, thought it was funny to mock poor people on SNAP benefits, but the internet didn't let it slide, and the backlash was brutal. Her videos went viral for all the wrong reasons. Let's break it down how racism, classism, and cruelty always backfire.
I'm stitching this because people need to see what's happening in real time when a nurse publicly mocks people receiving SNAP benefits as if poverty is a personal failure. So this nurse, who identifies as Tina Coleman, an RN at Crenshaw Community Hospital in Laverne, Alabama, thought it was appropriate to belittle people who rely on public assistance, many of whom are the same patients we care for every day. So I'm gonna let you see the clip.
My baby has not eaten in 2 hours. That is why I'm on my way to my second job tonight, because it is my responsibility to make sure that he eats, not the U.S. taxpayers. I am responsible for keeping him fed and clothed.
So this is the ugly side of nursing culture we don't talk about enough. The performative, I work 2 jobs pride that disguises contempt for the poor. Nursing isn't about judging who's worthy of help. It's about care, equity, and humanity. And we've seen too many stories of bullying, discrimination, and classism in this field. It is time for accountability. The profession needs to study it, name it, and root it out. Because when you humiliate the vulnerable, you do not represent nursing. You absolutely disgrace it.
Welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, please subscribe. Tina Coleman, a self-proclaimed patriotic MAGA nurse, posted a TikTok mocking SNAP recipients, mostly low-income families. She laughed about how people depend on government handouts, while she claimed to work hard for her money. Her tone was arrogant, condescending, and dripping with disrespect towards the poor. She didn't expect the explosion of anger that followed online. Within hours, her video went viral, but not the way she hoped. Viewers exposed her workplace, tagged hospitals, and demanded accountability.
My baby has not eaten in 2 hours. That is why I'm on my way to my second job tonight, because it is my responsibility to make sure that he eats, not the U.S. taxpayers. I am responsible for keeping him fed and clothed.
You know, it always amazes me how much people want to go viral so much that they're willing to risk everything they have to do it. Because you came on the internet and you mocked an entire group of people, like millions of people that need help every single day, putting basic food on their table, feeding their kids, meeting life's most basic necessities, and you're a nurse. Did you know that you have ethics that you are required to live under? And I don't know how it works, you swear an oath or whatever, but there are some ethics that you live under as a nurse. And here they are, Provision 1, the nurse practices with compassion and respect for the inherent dignity, worth, and unique attributes of every person. You literally have ethics as a nurse that you swear to that includes all of this stuff right here. And when you come on the internet and you mock humanity, you are directly breaking this. I wonder if your hospital has something similar in their mission statement. Oh, look at that. They do. The mission of blank hospital to care for our community by improving the health and well-being of the people we serve, regardless of their economic or social status, by providing healthcare, disease prevention, and health education services, regardless of their economic or social status. I don't think your hospital agrees with you. Now look, Your secret's safe with me. I don't go that far. If you're going to come on the internet and mock people who need help, who actually work in many cases 2 jobs to be able to feed their kids, you're breaking multiple guidelines here. Just wanted you to know that this is not hard. Anyway, I hope you care for your patients that come through your doors more than what you portray on the internet, because I don't think that your employer would really appreciate this, your internet presence and the way that you handle yourself. I'm just taking a wild guess.
My baby has not eaten in 2 hours. That is why I'm on my way to my second job tonight, because it is my responsibility to make sure that he eats, not the U.S. taxpayer.
So just an update on that nurse. Since that was posted, she was fired from her job. But as someone who's also a nurse and I work with newborn babies, there's nothing more sad and depressing to see at work when like these new parents who should be excited to take care of the new baby are like genuinely really concerned about how they're gonna feed their baby. Like, it is so just depressing. Like, I never knew until I became a nurse how expensive diapers are. Like, one package of diapers is $50, and not every parent can breastfeed, so they're reliant on formula, just as expensive. And when I'm at work and we give away diapers and formula to these patients, it feels like I'm handing over gold, because that's how expensive these things are. And whenever we discharge these patients, we try to make sure that they have all the resources that they need. But I just can't imagine being a nurse and making that video of mocking these people. Like, they just need help.
Have you heard about that nurse who decided to come on Beyonce's internet and make fun of people starving because they lost their SNAP benefits?
My baby has not eaten in 2 hours. That is why I'm on my way to my second job tonight, because it is my responsibility to make sure that he eats, not the U.S. taxpayer. I am responsible for keeping him fed and clothed.
Allegedly, she lost her job. I don't agree with that, though. I don't think she should have lost her job. I think she should lose her nursing license, period. No one who acts like that should have another person's life in their hands. They shouldn't be mildly inconvenienced for a month or 2. Nurses can get another job like this. We know this. That is not enough of a punishment when they show blatant disregard for human life, for human suffering. If you didn't care about a person losing their SNAP benefits, then we don't care about you losing your livelihood. People can starve, then you cannot get paid. Then you could have to start all over again financially. Being a nurse is not a right, it is a privilege. And when you show that you're not worthy of that privilege, it should be taken away.
A lot of people are talking about the nurse who went viral for mocking recipients of SNAP benefits, and then I saw another video from a nurse creator who said we need to study this. I just want to take a moment and highlight the research that we already have. What that nurse did has a name in organizational psychology. That's obviously a form of lateral violence, also called horizontal violence and oppressed group behavior, which is a very popular thing to talk about on this app. But it was first documented by Paulo Freire in the 1970s, and then it was applied to nursing by Judith Meisner in 1986. And the pattern is this. When groups are systematically marginalized within a power hierarchy, they internalize the values of those above them and redirect their frustration towards their own people. Or, in this case, toward people with even less power. And in nursing, we call it eating our young. That's what we've called it for decades, but it extends beyond just bullying new nurses. Research shows that 46 to 100% of nurses experience lateral violence at some point in their careers. That's not just a few bad apples. That's a systemic pattern, and the cost to healthcare is over $4 billion annually in lost productivity, staff turnover, and recruitment costs. But the bigger cost is patient safety. These hostile work environments significantly increase medical errors and adverse outcomes. Here's what a lot of people miss. This is not just a behavioral problem, it's a nervous system problem. From a polyvagal perspective, based on the research of Dr. Stephen Porges, healthcare work creates chronic nervous system dysregulation because workers are exposed to repeated trauma and death, moral injury from inadequate resources, and hierarchical abuse and powerlessness. Chronic threat states with no recovery time. Okay? And when your nervous system is chronically dysregulated, what looks like unprofessional behavior is often autonomic survival responses. You literally cannot regulate behavior without first regulating your nervous system. So why did this nurse mock people receiving SNAP benefits specifically? Well, status anxiety, economic vulnerability. She was trying to psychologically distance herself from her own precarity by attacking people she perceived as beneath her. She was performing for an imagined audience, trying to show that she's one of the good ones, not like those people. It's the same mechanism that happens in nursing when nurses eat their young, except in this instance it was just projected outward instead of inward. to the profession. Here's what actually needs to happen. And to the other nurse creator who said we actively need to study this, I think that was just rhetorical reactivity, but I did take it upon myself to look up existing frameworks. I'm not overly familiar with them, so please do feel free to look up some of the things that I'm going to talk about next. I'm going to talk about the Polyvagal Institute that has organizational applications for nervous system-informed workplace design. SAMHSA, government entity, has comprehensive trauma-informed care principles specifically for healthcare settings. The American Nurses Association has a position statement on incivility and workplace violence with evidence-based interventions. And the Institute for Healthcare Improvement has the Joy in Work framework. Research from Ferrer, Roberts, Hutchinson's, Vassy. What we actually need is implementation. And that comes in the form of trauma-informed organizational cultures, not just one-day trainings, but embedded practices, nervous system support as standard workplace provisions, zero-tolerance policies with actual enforcement, addressing the power hierarchies that create oppression dynamics, and economic stability so workers aren't operating from chronic threat states. The research exists, the framework exists, the interventions exist. What's missing is institutional courage and actually funding and implementing them. My understanding is that nurse is now unemployed, and she found out the hard way that punching down does not protect you from falling. But the system that produced her burnout is still very much intact, still producing the next casualty. I did write a full breakdown of all of this with citations and references, and that article is on my LinkedIn. My point is there are solutions. Healthcare just has to decide whether or not they want to use them.
I'm stitching this because people need to see what's happening in real time. When a nurse publicly mocks people receiving SNAP benefits as if poverty is a personal failure. So this nurse, who identifies as Tina Coleman, an RN at Crenshaw Community Hospital in Laverne, Alabama, thought it was appropriate to belittle people who rely on public assistance, many of whom are the same patients we care for every day. So I'm going to let you see the clip. So this is the ugly side of nursing culture we don't talk about enough. The performative, I work 2 jobs pride that disguises contempt for the poor. Nursing isn't about judging who's worthy of help. It's about care, equity, and humanity. And we've seen too many stories of bullying, discrimination, and classism in this field. It is time for accountability. The profession needs to study it, name it, and root it out. Because when you humiliate the vulnerable, you do not represent nursing. You absolutely
My baby has not eaten in 2 hours. That is why I'm on my way to my second job tonight, because it is my responsibility to make sure that he eats, not the U.S. taxpayers. I am responsible for keeping him fed and clothed.
Tina Coleman, to be exact. It is my job as a beautiful Black woman to make sure that the world knows that you, Tina, as an RN, are okay with children suffering due to malnutrition. Tina Coleman. Now, since you had your RN degree and you knew every fucking thing, you should have knew that you needed to turn your badge around in every photo. But see, me, I have time. So I scrolled a little bit to April, and I saw that you were silly enough to forget, because people like you always forget. So, Tina, I've noticed that you've worked in Alabama, and you've also worked in Kentucky, places where there are large populations of people who do need SNAP benefits and Medicaid. And I would never want someone like you to be working in the healthcare field that had to ever deal with someone who unfortunately needed those benefits. And not only that, as an RN, you should know the signs of a stroke. Have the day you deserve, Tina Coleman.
You know what's really scary is healthcare workers who are MAGA. This woman in particular is making fun of SNAP recipients. And what she does is she's like, I'm responsible for the clothing and feeding, la la, and she brings out her dog. She apparently, from looking at her page, is a registered nurse, I think in Alabama, red state. And to have somebody who is a healthcare provider who has so little compassion and, in fact, has contempt for people who are on public assistance is just frightening. We already talk about what does unconscious bias do to people. And when somebody has your literal health and welfare in their hands, and they are sitting here in work clothes making these kinds of videos, literally making fun of people who are on public assistance, that's frightening. Does anybody know who this is? She has her information pretty public, but as you can imagine, it's not stitchable.
My baby has not eaten in 2 hours. That is why I'm on my way to my second job tonight, because it is my responsibility to make sure that he eats, not the U.S. taxpayers. I am responsible for keeping him fed and clothed.
She posted a video mocking people on SNAP benefits, like she's above it all. But here's the twist. She also has a GoFundMe asking for $46,000 for her mother and a grandchild with a serious health condition, meaning at any moment she or her family could be the ones on SNAP. Yet she's publicly shaming people who rely on it. And get this, she became a nurse. We know that getting a nursing degree often involves student aid, Pell Grants, loans, maybe even SNAP eligibility at some point, so to mock others while benefiting from the system, it screams hypocrisy. When you're in the caring profession, you're supposed to uplift folks, not shame them. If you're going to wear that uniform, you better carry some empathy. Because right now, it looks like this lady chose judgment over care, and that's unacceptable. If this is how you talk about patients or people in need, maybe this job isn't really for you.
Want to give an update to this crazy lady.
My baby has not eaten in 2 hours. That is why I'm on my way to my second job tonight, because it is my responsibility to make sure that he eats, not the U.S. taxpayers. I am responsible for keeping him fed and clothed.
Now, many of you have identified her as a Tina out of Alabama, and that's all I'm going to go with because I can't confirm that in the way that I like to confirm things, but you do with that information however you like. But it actually gets worse. Someone was able to grab this video before she put her account on private.
On today's episode of Black and Jobless.
There you have it. She was exactly who we thought she was.
I'm stitching this because y'all need to see what's happening right now. A nurse, yes, a whole RN got online and thought it was cute to mock people on SNAP benefits. Like, really? As if being poor is a personal failure? Her name's Tina Coleman, a registered nurse at Crenshaw Community Hospital in Laverne, Alabama. And she decided to go online and belittle people who rely on public assistance, the same people nurses are supposed to care for every single day. And let me just say this, when you mock people for struggling, you're not showing strength, you're showing cruelty. This kind of attitude makes the whole profession look bad. We've seen too much bullying, discrimination, and classism in healthcare, and it's time for accountability. Because when you humiliate the vulnerable, you don't represent nursing, you disgrace it.
Imagine mocking a community of people and then joining them. Nurse Taylor was mocking SNAP benefit recipients. Could be elderly, could be children of people who fell on hard times, or could be someone laid off or terminated, or it could be someone who was stricken with an illness that you were probably in the room for when they found out. Imagine a SNAP benefit recipient is someone who was just in the room with you, finding out about a diagnosis. And in finding out about the diagnosis, they realize that they're going to have to pay the bill that's going to come from the moment they found out that they are now on hard times. Now here you are on social media mocking them. And as a result of your mocking, you're now unemployed. Terminated. And I say now that you're terminated, it kind of becomes hard to look for a job, because now when you're Googled.
Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. What's up? What's up? As a healthcare professional myself, the majority of my patients have to utilize such programs like Medicare, Medicaid, food assistance, Social Security, and disability. But how disgusting to see how she really feels about her patients.
I hate to be the one to break it to y'all, but it was never an open book test. It was never an open book test for MAGA supporters who have finally seen the light now that we're threatening cutting SNAP benefits. I keep reading the comments. It was an open book test. I have no sympathy. It was not an open book test. We don't have the same book. And half of the people who finally have opened their eyes wouldn't have been able to read the book had it been the same to begin with. I just completed all of my medical training in Arkansas. I went to college in Oklahoma. I grew up in Illinois, and it turns out that I was fortunate enough to be born in a suburb where I attended what is now the #1 school district in the country. So let me be the first to tell you, after growing up 0 to 18 in a community based around something that would produce the #1 school district in the country, and then 18 to 32 down in rural America, it's not the same book. And if it did take the cutting of SNAP benefits for you to finally open your eyes and recognize that maybe you're not understanding, maybe you didn't know, maybe you weren't paying attention, I'm so sorry that nobody ever told you that it is not your fault. It is not your fault. What we seem to not understand about the hardcore red states that are based around these rural Americans that are fighting for gun rights, abortion laws, anti-LGBTQ+, we are not in the same universe. Even the algorithms on the phones are not the same. States that are most notoriously hardcore for DJT are the same states that suffer from the highest levels of adverse childhood experiences in the worst ways. The chronic stress that is experienced by rural Americans is something that I could probably and should write a book about. Generations of families that have relied on disability because they were a blue-collar worker and were injured on the job, that relied on SNAP benefits because they've gone through 4 generations of people who were pregnant at 14 years old because we don't teach sex ed. These people did not receive the same education as most other people in this country because they don't value it, because it takes their kids and their families away. Like, okay, when I went to college in Oklahoma, all of these other people in my class, it was so clear that not only was their early education not even close to what I received, especially in the way that they would write. I would read people's essays and I would be like, oh. Meanwhile, in my high school, we had to write a 16-page research paper junior year, which, by the way, I wrote on how absolutely ridiculous and exclusive George W. Bush's No Child Left Behind frickin' was. You're not understanding that the government is lying to you and manipulating you by using your religion against you. They know they can garner your support in how you approach the values you hold in your religious beliefs, while behind the scenes, they're absolutely destroying any possibility that you, your family, your future generations have at living good lives. And I don't want this to be offensive, because I do understand that Southern culture, Southern pride, these generations have also been built strongly around resilience in different ways. But at the end of the day, you live in a state where 1 in 4 children goes to bed hungry every single night, and you're actively supporting the same exact person who is going to make that probably 1 in 2 next month, right before the holidays. If you want God to show up in your community, if you want to truly base all of your political decision making around being a godly Christian or a godly individual, the only way to do that would be to wholeheartedly support anything that improves the communities that rural Americans are living in. It would be supporting things that provide them with basic human needs, especially under the assumption that we are already in a highly impoverished places in the United States where there has not been much opportunity at all. It is full of people who are already impacted by living a life of chronic stress. Now has these same states with the sickest people in America, with the highest numbers of chronic illnesses. This is all interrelated. If you cannot build strong humans from the bottom up and provide them with basic needs of stability, support, food, shelter, opportunity, financial security, emotional stability, and support, rather than building up a generation of indoctrinated children to believe that we are living by the word of God and that anyone else who doesn't deserve anything good or sustainable in this life. Like, instead of worrying about who in America is able to get an abortion should they need or desire one, instead of worrying about who is LGBTQ+ and whether or not your child is going to be exposed to that, worry about the trauma that is happening in your own home. Worry about that, because everything else will fall into place. You guys want to keep talking, why has autism gone up? Why? Because the chronic stress has gone up to astronomical numbers. We are not the same human beings biologically, physiologically, as we once were, and y'all are pretending that we are, and that no one needs any support. But yeah, it wasn't an open book test.
Nurses and healthcare workers across the country condemned her remarks. People reminded her that millions of Americans, including veterans, seniors, and even single parents, rely on SNAP to survive. Her arrogance turned into instant regret as her career and reputation began to crumble. The hypocrisy. This is a common MAGA script. Complain about lazy people while voting for policies that cause poverty. Claim Christian values while mocking those in need. Wave flags of freedom while trying to shame the struggling. They forget that many MAGA supporters themselves depend on SNAP in rural areas hit hard by poverty. Tina Coleman's post exposes the ugly double standard within the MAGA movement. Now, this is the deeper message. Poverty doesn't care about color or politics. People are hungry everywhere. Mocking the poor is not a sign of strength, but is a sign of moral bankruptcy. And when someone with a nurse uniform, whose job is to care and heal, mocks the sufferings, it hits hard. And this shows how racism and class arrogance often walk hand in hand. Soon after the online backlash, Tina deleted her TikTok video and tried to go silent. Reports saying her employers received hundreds of complaints. Some claim she was suspended or under review. Her arrogance now costing her everything. Once again, the internet proved that when you mock the struggling, you expose your own weakness. Now the bigger picture. This isn't just about one nurse. It's about a mindset. A system where people are taught to look down on others instead of questioning why poverty exists. Where compassion is seen as weakness and cruelty as confidence. But every time they try to shame the poor, the truth hits back harder. As I conclude, Tina Coleman learned the hard way. Mockery doesn't make you powerful. It makes you small. No slogan can hide a rotten heart. And to everyone out there struggling, you are not the joke. You are the truth that exposes their lies. Because the moment you speak up, their cruelty crumbles. Stay alert, stay bold, stay aware, because the world is watching and the truth always fights back. Thank you for watching. This is Mercy Realities.